Now that season 4 is officially over, let's talk about one variable that is supposed to be important, but was rarely seen because they mostly acted behind the scenes, which is the existence of the White Room students. Since it's almost impossible to avoid any spoiler on social media, I think you already know that Yagami is the White Room student, so let's talk about everything that Yagami did during the island exam. However, since Yagami almost never gets a monologue or a story based on his point of view, everything here is mostly just speculation, prediction, and maybe some fans coping with his greatness, so please take everything here with a big grain of salt. The first time we heard of Yagami after the uninhabited island exam was announced was his action of gathering every class leader of the first year. He said that in order to balance their inexperience, they should work together to fight their senior for the top 3 positions. His word sounds reasonable, but if we look at everyone present at that meeting, they are the people who were chosen by Nagumo to expel Ayanokoji with 20 million as the reward. So by persuading them to form a group, Yagami not only gains access to the entire first-year student body, but he also gathers everyone who at least has a reason to expel Ayanokoji. The first part of Yagami's plan was a success, and the next thing we know is that he contacted Kushida and requested a meeting with Ayanokoji. This is the first and last time Yagami and Ayanokoji actually face each other, and Yagami told him everything about the 20 million bounty. As for why Yagami decided to tell him, there are a few possible reasons for that action. The simplest possibility is that Yagami didn't want Ayanokoji to get expelled, because from his monologue in Volume 2, he wanted to bring him to the ground all by himself, so nobody has the right to expel Ayanokoji other than him. However, that reason simply sounds too shallow. Looking at how he let Kushida hear their conversation and how Tsubaki was watching from afar, there must be multiple layers behind this encounter. By letting Kushida hear about the 20 million bounty, Yagami indirectly told Kushida that expelling Ayanokoji will bring benefit to him. And later on the island we can see Kushida didn't ask too much when Yagami ordered her to record Ayanokoji's crime, because the 20 million reward is enough to not make anyone suspicious about someone's motive. Telling Kushida about the bounty made Yagami look more human and reasonable in Kushida's eyes, and if Yagami realized Tsubaki was following him, that encounter also gave Tsubaki false information that Kushida is important to him, especially because he was blushing for her. We later saw Tsubaki using Yagami's connection to Kushida to threaten him, so if Yagami really thinks that far ahead, Yagami purposely asking Kushida is actually his way to tell Tsubaki that she could use Kushida later. Yagami's action seems unreasonable at first, but if we see what his action led to, we could start to appreciate how Yagami is actually a terrifying manipulator. By telling Ayanokoji that a bunch of first years are targeting him, Ayanokoji ended up facing the island exam alone for the sake of flexibility, because moving alone will be easier for him to handle, but it also put him at much more risk of expulsion. You can also see that by expelling a random Class C student, Yagami managed to make Utomiya and Tsubaki get serious, and by framing Hosen of all people, it gives a sense of unity among the first years because Hosen is indeed a very unlikable person. Anyway, before the island exam officially started, Yagami managed to achieve his most ideal outcome, and Ayanokoji will need to fight against the entire first-year student. It took a whole 6 days before we finally got the first mention of Yagami in the uninhabited island exam, and when he appeared, it was during the first-year class leaders meeting that soon turned into his interrogation. Just like Yagami predicted, Tsubaki, who watches him with Kushida, eventually uses that information to force him to reveal Kushida's secret. Kushida's secret is not important for them, but what Yagami wanted was an action, and he succeeded at making them move. In the first week of the island, the first year except for Hosen actually doesn't have any plan about Ayanokoji, and it's only thanks to Tsubaki that they finally decide to meet and plan their strategy on the 6th day. However, there are 3 reasons that finally push them to make their own strategy. The first reason is Hosen and Tsubasa, who acted since the first day, because since both Tsubaki and Utomiya still hate Hosen as the one who expelled their classmates, they naturally don't want Hosen to win the exam. The second reason is Yagami with his Kushida plan, because even though it's failed, at least it gives Tsubaki pressure to act unless she wants other people to snatch the prize. And the last reason is undoubtedly Shinohara's incident. On the morning of the 4th day, Yagami pushed Komiya and Kinoshita from the cliff, resulting in both of them need to withdraw from the exam. The fourth day is the day where the ranking would be announced to everyone on the island, so the gradual decrease of Shinohara's group will be visible to everyone. Since there are two groups of first-year students in the bottom 10, and a few students who are just one push away from expulsion, they eventually came up with a plan to fill the bottom 5 ranks with those students, and while they are at it, there is no harm in finally start to target Ayanokoji. This strategy especially works for Utomiya, because since he doesn't want his classmates to get expelled once again, he got along with Yagami's plan of sending Kushida, so he decided to also send the student named Karachi to witness the fight between Ayanokoji and Tsubasa. The plan was to report Ayanokoji to school for violence, but sadly both of them were blocked by Ichika. Not only did it fail, but Tsubasa decided to use GPS search and found Karachi's name near them, but thankfully Ayanokoji didn't seriously suspect Karachi as the culprit. However, since the plan failed, Tsubaki finally chose to take action and start organizing the first year to corner Ayanokoji. Speaking of Tsubaki, it is also possible that Yagami actually baited her to come to the surface with his Kushida strategy. Yagami must have been curious to see the mastermind behind Utomiya, and since an actual tactician finally came out to expel Ayanokoji, Yagami could finally rest and observe behind the scenes. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of things that can be noted from Yagami in the second week of the island. He passively supported Tsubaki with her plan, and the last thing we saw him do in action was put a note outside Horikita's tent to tell her about Ayanokoji's possible expulsion. As for why he decided to tell Horikita about Tsukishiro's plan, there might be a few reasons behind it. At first it might be to get rid of Tsukishiro by letting a student watch his crime, but this reason is weak since Yagami should have known that Tsukishiro cannot stay in school for too long. The other reason is that he just wanted to give Horikita some hints so she could try to trace him, because in volume 4.5, Yagami admits that he wanted to reveal himself and finally have a head-to-head fight with Ayanokoji. Horikita was chosen because she is close with both Yagami and Ayanokoji, and judging by how Yagami is playing passive in the entire island exam, it seems he just wants to give a little clue to see if Ayanokoji could end up finding him. After all, volume 4.5 literally confirms that Yagami never had any plan to expel Ayanokoji in the island exam, because his intention is simply to observe and analyze. He used Tsubasa and Kushida to see Ayanokoji's way of thinking, and he later uses the first-year group to see the range of Ayanokoji's connections, and maybe also his physical ability. For Yagami, the entire uninhabited island exam is just to collect information while keeping his identity hidden, and although he did some risky move in some place, he managed to achieve his goal. This might be not the best word to describe Yagami, but despite his invisibility, he actually the wisest person who tried to challenge Ayanokoji. He didn't put himself open to observation, and he didn't blatantly charge against enemy who he know nothing about. He started his entire plan by gathering everything he can have, and learn about his enemy before he made any concrete move. Spoiler alert, even though Yagami ended up getting expelled in a quite disappointing way, he just got really unlucky for a few things that he has no idea about. He never knew about Ishigami, and he clearly underestimated Ayanokoji and everyone around him. In the end, even though Yagami said they would finally fight head-to-head, that day when they finally saw each other face-to-face ended up never come, but let's just hope the future will treat him better than this.